First of all, I know I made a big mistake. I know I hurt her, but hear me out and be honest with me if I still could fix what I've broken or not. I'm Russian, so don't mind my English. I'm using a throwaway. I am 32 years old and started to date a 29-year-old woman in 2021. We had a great relationship. She's calm, sweet, and considerate. We dated for a year, then moved to another city. Everything was going great. We made new friends and built a life there. Problems started when a male best friend of hers decided to move to the same city and found himself a place right across the street. Things started to change. He would visit almost every day. My ex was a people pleaser. I tried to make it clear to her that it's getting annoying and that I don't like that guy, but she couldn't bring herself to tell him or set some boundaries. He was handsy and flirty in a way I couldn't stand. She would hint that she's not comfortable and he would behave, but 5 minutes later he starts with his usual, and she ends up telling me that he means nothing and he's like this with everyone. Fast forward to 2023. We found out she was pregnant. I was over the moon and both of us were extremely happy and excited. He stopped visiting, and after like 2 months or so, he moved back to his city. My ex and I had mutual friends. That's where one of our friends started connecting dots and started telling me how she had suspected something but kept quiet because she didn't want to be the reason two people separate but can't hold this anymore. And played with my mind. She said that my girlfriend and her best friend probably had a thing going on based on the way they used to act whenever we were out with our friends, and how it's strange of him to leave just as she got pregnant. She suggested that I don't put the baby in my name until a paternity test has been completed. I told my girlfriend about this, and she didn't take it well. She broke up with me instantly, and after a few weeks agreed to the paternity test thing. But she made it clear that nothing will change, that she will never forgive me and won't ever come back to me if I ever regret what I did and ask for forgiveness. I told her we could just forget about the test, but she insisted. Our boy came a few days ago, and we did the test. Yesterday, I got the results. And yes, I feel my chest terribly tight with regret. I didn't drink or eat anything. I couldn't even bring myself to go to work today. What do I do now? When we broke up, I never stopped helping throughout the pregnancy. She refused almost everything. But still, I was always there for her. Deep down, I knew that baby was mine, but the damage was done, and I went with the plan. What to do now? How do I make it up to her? I know she would never come back to me. But how do I properly apologize? Just what to do now? Edit. All right, thank you all for your opinions, I knew. And I know now what a jerk I am. I know I fricked up. But I never said I was planning to ask her to come back to me since I know I hurt her badly and in no place to ask such a thing. I also made it clear I had no problem with taking responsibility as a dad. I don't know why I got called names about it in the comments. I'm happily ready to do everything in my power to be the best dad to my son, and of course, financially too. Also, I did try to explain and genuinely apologize before even the test, but she wouldn't listen. I'm ready and never gonna stop trying to apologize to her for the hurt I caused, and I will always be there for the mother of my child. As for now, she just gave birth. I won't add up to my problem. I will be there for her until I feel like it's a good time, then I will ask to talk about it. Edit, for people asking how I brought up the test. We talked about it at home. I asked if she still thinks that her best friend's behavior is okay. She said yes. Then I tried to reason with her by asking her if it were the other way around. Would it be okay for her to see another girl being that flirty and handsy with me? Then she said, "You don't have a childhood friend that I knew of." Then I went and told her if his behavior is still okay for her, then would it be okay for me to ask for a paternity test? She said if I don't want kids, I should have told her before, and that she has no problem to go back home, another city, and raise her baby alone. That's where I lost it and said something along the lines that she's going after her best friend, and asked if this was their plan. Wrong of me, I know. She broke up with me instantly, and just like I mentioned in the post. Few weeks later, she called, last edit, the mutual friend is married. She didn't make a move or anything, but she's an ex-friend now. For people asking what the male friend did to make me this insecure, well, whenever they're sitting beside each other, he would keep running his hand up and down her arm, ankle, or back, based on the way she's sitting. He would compliment her body, or when she changed her hair color, he would ask her to go back to whatever color he loved to see on her. He could be really just too comfortable with his female childhood friend, but I thought he could at least behave a little now that she's in a serious relationship. Also, some of you asking why I didn't talk to the guy directly. I didn't want to make her feel like a controlling freak, so I tried to communicate with her and let her handle it. The way I handled the whole situation was wrong. When I accused her of planning to go back to her city town just to be close to him, was wrong of me too. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. And when the friend who preyed on your fears and broke you both up, as she knew it would, makes a play for you, turn her down flat. Be present for your ex and the baby, and maybe ask for marital counseling to help negotiate the separation. There may be a chance for your relationship in that scenario. Work on it and own your faults. Comment 2. Also, OP. Don't trust the woman who stirred this up by suggesting the baby wasn't yours. Trust me, she wanted to break up your relationship. Maybe she wants you herself, or she just likes creating drama, but either way, she's toxic. You screwed up by not believing your girlfriend and listening to someone else over her. Now for the update. Hey everyone, thanks for all your comments and support on my last post. It really means a lot to me during this difficult time. It's been interesting to say the least of emotions these past few days since I got the paternity test results, confirming that I am indeed the father of my ex-girlfriend's baby boy. The overwhelming sense of relief was quickly replaced by an all-consuming regret for ever doubting her in the first place. I spent the first day after getting the results in a daze, unable to eat or sleep, consumed by thoughts of how badly I had messed up. I called in sick to work, not having the energy or focus to face the day. All I could think about was how much I had hurt the woman I loved and how I could ever make it right. I knew I needed to apologize, to try and explain myself, even if she never forgave me. So I mustered up the courage and reached out to her, asking if we could talk. To my surprise, she agreed to meet me at a nearby park. As I sat on the bench waiting for her to arrive, my heart was racing, palms sweaty with nerves. When she finally appeared, pushing our son in his stroller, I felt a lump form in my throat. She looked exhausted, dark circles under her eyes, but still so beautiful. I stumbled over my words as I tried to express how deeply sorry I was for ever doubting her, for letting my insecurities and the words of others cloud my judgment. I told her that I knew I had no right to ask for her forgiveness, but that I wanted her to know that I would always be there for her and our son, in whatever capacity she was comfortable with. She listened quietly, her expression unreadable. When I finished, she simply nodded and said that she appreciated my apology, but that it would take time for her to process everything and decide what kind of relationship, if any, she wanted us to have going forward. As she turned to leave, I felt a desperate urge to stop her, to beg her to give me another chance. But I knew that I had to respect her wishes and give her the space she needed. The next few days were a blur of trying to adjust to this new reality. I threw myself into work, staying late at the office to avoid going back to our empty apartment, filled with reminders of the life we had built together. I reached out to my ex's best friend, the one whose close relationship with her had sparked my initial doubts. I apologized for my behavior towards him and asked if we could meet to clear the air. He agreed, and we had a long conversation where he assured me that his friendship with my ex had always been purely platonic, and that he had never meant to cause any issues in our relationship. Hearing this from him directly was both a relief and a painful reminder of how badly I had misjudged the situation. I realized that my own insecurities and jealousy had blinded me to the truth and caused me to lose the most important person in my life. As the days turned into weeks, I did my best to be there for my ex and our son in whatever way she needed. I attended doctor's appointments, helped with late-night feedings, and made sure she had everything she needed to recover from the birth and adjust to motherhood. Slowly but surely, we began to find a new rhythm as co-parents, learning to communicate and work together for the sake of our child. It wasn't easy, and there were plenty of awkward moments and misunderstandings along the way, but we were both committed to doing what was best for our son. Despite the progress we were making, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was still missing. I missed the easy intimacy and companionship we had once shared, the inside jokes and shared dreams for the future. I knew that I had to find a way to move forward, to build a new life for myself, while still being the best father I could be. So I started seeing a therapist to work through my issues with trust and jealousy, and to learn how to be a better partner and parent. It wasn't a quick or easy process, but slowly I began to feel like I was making progress. I started to see my own worth and value outside of my relationship, and to build a support system of friends and family who could be there for me during the tough times. As the months passed, my ex and I continued to navigate the challenges of co-parenting, learning to put our differences aside for the sake of our son. We even started to develop a tentative friendship, bonding over the joys and struggles of raising a child together. But even as things improved between us, I knew that the damage I had done to our relationship was irreparable. The trust and love we had once shared had been shattered, and no matter how much I wished I could go back and change things, I knew that it was impossible. Now, a year later, I look back on that time with a mix of sadness and gratitude. Sadness for what I lost, for the family I could have had if I hadn't let my fears and doubts consume me. But also gratitude for the lessons I learned, for the opportunity to become a better version of myself, and to be the father my son deserves. I know that I can never fully make up for the pain I caused, but I am committed to spending the rest of my life trying to be the best man I can be, for myself, for my son, and for the woman who will always hold a special place in my heart. Thank you all for listening and for your continued support. It means more than you know. My fiancé wanted to wear a dress at our wedding, but when he left me at the altar, I made sure his secret was front-page news. My partner, 30-year-old male, and I, 29-year-old female, are getting married next year. We were discussing wedding planning, and out of the blue, he asked me how I would feel about subverting tradition by having him wear the wedding dress while I wore a tuxedo on our wedding day. When he said this, I actually laughed out loud because I was sure it was a joke. Turns out he was dead serious. He said he finds tuxedos to be very similar to each other, and they feel a lot like wearing a suit to a job interview. But he wanted to wear something special when he got married, and he had always thought wedding dresses were so beautiful and different from each other. I told him no. It wouldn't be appropriate, and it would turn our wedding into a spectacle. It would probably change the way a lot of our friends and family view us. My family is quite progressive, but I think even they would wonder what was going on. He said okay, but seemed down for the rest of the night. We're both very progressive and have several close friends who are gender non-conforming, non-binary, or simply like cross-dressing, so that has never been an issue. But even though we have been together for 5 years, he has never expressed any desire to do so before. It would be okay with me if he wanted to experiment, and I think it would even be a different story if this was something that was integral to his daily identity, and he wanted it to be reflected in our wedding. I just don't understand why he wants the first time to be on our wedding day. Am I the jerk for being controlling over his wedding attire choices? Update. So based on these responses, I realize I may have overreacted. I had another conversation with my fiancé. I tried to explore the reasons he wanted to wear a dress to our wedding in an open-minded way. I emphasized that he could tell me if he was transgender, non-binary, or wanted to experiment with cross-dressing, and I would still love him and want to marry him. He seemed genuinely taken aback and told me it wasn't that big a deal. He just really liked wedding dresses, and it hadn't even occurred to him that I might have a problem with him wearing one, since it's one of the 2 most common options. We have been to weddings where both partners wore a dress or both wore a tuxedo. After all, it's not like he's contemplating wearing sweatpants to our wedding, lol. But of course, if I did have a problem, he would be fine wearing a tuxedo. Of course, he has no problem with me wearing a dress. The reverse roles thing was just one of many ways he thought that could go. He also reassured me that he would feel safe sharing any changes in his gender or intimacy identity status with me. I told him we could look at wedding dresses together and coordinate whatever makes us both feel special, whether that's dress, 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 tuxedo, 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 or something else. ETA 2. LOL, can we cut it out with the "my fiancé is gay" comments? I'm pretty sure if he was gay, then he would just be gay, rather than go through an elaborate scheme of being in a 5-year relationship with and marrying a woman for cover, and then doing the least stealth thing possible at our wedding. IDK where y'all are from, but being gay is not considered a big deal or something you have to hide where we are. I'm very open about being bisexual, He has several family members who are gay and are wholly accepted. Admittedly, we still have a ways to go before trans and other non-conforming identities have the same level of acceptance. But at this point, the comments are just coming across as cheap and irrelevant shots at gay people. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Well, this sounds like he is trying to come out to you or something. There are tons of ways to have a flamboyant suit for a wedding. Heck, just look at the NFL draft. The fact that he specifically wants to wear a dress on your plural wedding day really feels like some sort of cross-dressing or non-binary declaration. I would 100% figure that out. He also 100% should get to wear something he is proud of on his wedding day. Way more discussion is needed. Comment 2. I mean, I think this calls for a much larger conversation because if he wants to wear something unique to him, he can have an outfit custom-made for him. If he wants to use the wedding as a platform for announcing something a whole lot bigger, that is a conversation that needs to be had. Now, for the update. Hey everyone, thanks for reading my previous post and all the thoughtful responses. It's been a wild couple of weeks since I last updated, and I wanted to fill you in on what's been happening. After our heart-to-heart conversation, my fiancé and I started looking at wedding dresses together. We found a few stunning options that we both loved, and I was actually getting excited about the idea of him wearing a dress on our big day. But then, things took an unexpected turn. Out of the blue, my fiancé's ex-girlfriend from college reached out to me on social media. She said she had something important to tell me and asked if we could meet up. I was hesitant at first, but my curiosity got the best of me. When we met for coffee, she dropped a bombshell. Apparently, my fiancé had a history of cross-dressing that went back years, long before we met. According to his ex, he would often wear her clothes and makeup when they were together, but he made her promise to keep it a secret. She said he was always ashamed and embarrassed about it, and he never wanted anyone to find out. I was shocked and confused. Why had he never told me about this? And why was he suddenly so eager to wear a dress at our wedding? I confronted my fiancé about it that night, and he broke down in tears. He admitted that he had been struggling with his gender identity for years, but he was too afraid to tell anyone. He said he thought wearing a dress at our wedding would be a way to finally express himself and be true to who he was. But he also said he was terrified of how people would react, especially his family. I tried to be supportive and understanding, but I couldn't help feeling betrayed. We had been together for 5 years, and he had never once mentioned this to me. I started to wonder what else he might be hiding from me. The trust between us was shattered, and I didn't know how to move forward. Over the next few days, things only got worse. My fiancé's parents found out about his plans to wear a dress at the wedding, and they were furious. They threatened to disown him if he went through with it. My own family was also less than thrilled about the idea, and some of them even suggested that we call off the wedding altogether. I was torn between my love for my fiancé and my desire to have a traditional wedding that wouldn't cause drama or controversy. We had countless arguments and tearful conversations, but we couldn't seem to find a solution that worked for both of us. In the end, my fiancé decided to call off the wedding. He said he couldn't go through with it if it meant hiding who he truly was. He packed his bags and moved out of our apartment, saying he needed time to figure things out on his own. I was devastated. I loved him so much, and I couldn't believe it had come to this. I tried to reach out to him, but he wouldn't return my calls or texts. It felt like my whole world had fallen apart. Looking back, I realized that there were signs that something was going on with my fiancé. He had always been a bit secretive about his past, and he would get defensive whenever I asked him about his college years. I also remember him making a few offhand comments about feeling like he didn't fit in with other guys, but I never thought much of it at the time. I wish he had felt comfortable enough to tell me about his struggles with gender identity from the beginning. Maybe things would have turned out differently if we had been able to have an open and honest conversation about it. But I also understand why he was afraid to share something so personal and vulnerable. In the end, I'm trying to focus on moving forward and healing from this experience. It's been a painful and confusing time, but I know I'll come out stronger on the other side. Thanks for listening and for all your support. My husband got a vasectomy after we agreed on 2 kids, but now I want a 3rd and he says no. So I replace his shampoo with Nair and watch his precious hair disappear. My wife and I have 2 children, 9, 6. After the second one, She said she was done having children, even though we had discussed having 3 children prior to marriage. We talked about it for a long time, but I love her, and I agreed to change our plans. She had an IUD, but we still used condoms. She really didn't want to get pregnant. About 4 years ago, we agreed that I would get a vasectomy. It made sense since it was a minor surgery, unlike her getting tubal ligation. It went well, and after I healed up, I went for testing, and it worked. If you ever get a vasectomy, please do the follow-up testing. My friend from college thought he was good to go, and now he has a child. So she got her IUD removed, and we stopped using condoms, and life was good. Until her sister had another child. Then one of her friends had a baby. And my wife went nuts. She wants another baby. She made a mistake and wants me to go get my vasectomy reversed or to get my sperm harvested and get IVF. I am not getting a needle in my balls or another operation. And we are actually doing great financially right now. Her taking 2 years off from work would be a big hit. I said we could look at adoption or fostering, but I was not interested in her having another child. She tried bringing up our agreement from before we got married, but I shut that down immediately, so for the last 4 months, our marriage has been a simmering battle about another child. She has had her parents over, my parents over, her sisters and their families, all trying to convince me that I should give in. I am almost 44. In 12 years, my youngest will be starting their career or their post-secondary education. I can see the finish line now. I did offer all the family members that chimed in a fun option. I agreed to get TISA, sperm harvesting, if all the men who agreed with my wife did it as well, even if they had functioning reproductive organs, at their own expense, and that they pool their money and pay for all bills related to IVF and the raising of the 3rd child. They all say I'm being ridiculous and petty. I reminded them that as a unit, they all agreed with my wife when she said she was fine with 2 children. They wanted to have input then, and it was free. I said this decision would require skin in the game. It all came to a head last weekend. My folks had the boys, so we could have a nice couple of days to ourselves. Instead, my wife and I got into a screaming match. She said I obviously didn't love her if I wasn't willing to do this, that we are well off enough to afford all the expenses of another child. I told her no in no uncertain terms. We had money in the bank for retirement and fun. And that's what it was for. Not for her to satisfy her hormonal desires. She accused me of caring more about money than her happiness. I reminded her that she was the one who insisted that having a 3rd child would demolish her career. She started crying and saying I was a jerk for denying her another child, that it was not that much of a sacrifice. I finally unloaded and said that a divorce would be cheaper for me than another child. That shocked her into silence. We have barely spoken since. I think I broke her. Our retirement funds are separate, our house is in both our names, and she earns slightly more than I do. If we get divorced, I will get 50/50 custody. I would want it. She would get no alimony, and I might get a few dollars in child support. I feel shitty threatening her with divorce. I love her and want to spend the rest of my life with her, but I am sick and tired of her making our reproductive decisions like my opinion does not matter. Now, for a few comments before the update, comment 1. Maybe encourage her to go to therapy. I experienced the same thing after having my tubes removed during my C-section. I made the choice myself and was done having kids. A year later, I wanted more. My husband agreed to do IVF with the condition of me going to therapy first. IVF takes a lot out of you physically and mentally. He wanted me to be clear-minded. The more I talked to my therapist, the more I realized that I wanted more babies because my sense of self was only being a mother and wife. I had lost myself and didn't know who I was anymore. Self-discovery and working on myself was what I needed, not another baby. Comment 2. Not the idiot. You had talks about how many kids you were both willing to have. You made an agreement to stop after 2. And you had a procedure to prevent any other pregnancy from you. Her changing her mind about having a 3rd child doesn't make you obligated to follow again. By the way, if she refused discussing fostering or adoption and even talked about IVF, she doesn't want another kid. She wants to be pregnant. Now for the update. Hey everyone, it's been a week since my last post and I wanted to give you an update on what's been happening. Thanks for reading. Things have been really tense between my wife and I since our big fight. We've barely spoken, and when we do, it's just short, necessary conversations about the kids or household stuff. I can tell she's still upset and hurt by what I said about divorce being cheaper than another child. I feel terrible for saying that, but at the same time, I was just so frustrated with her constantly pushing for something I don't want. A few days ago, my wife came to me and said she had an idea. She suggested that we could use a sperm donor to have another child. She said it would be a compromise since I wouldn't have to go through any medical procedures, and we could still have the third child she wants so badly. At first, I was completely against it. The thought of raising another man's child just didn't sit right with me. But she kept pushing, saying it was the only way we could both get what we want. I have to admit, I considered it for a moment. I thought maybe it could be a solution to our problem. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized it would just create even more issues. I would always know that the child wasn't really mine, and I'm not sure I could handle that. Plus, what would we tell the child when they got older? It just seemed like a recipe for disaster. When I told my wife I couldn't agree to the sperm donor idea, she got really upset again. She accused me of not being willing to compromise at all. I tried to explain my reasons, but she just wouldn't listen. She said I was being selfish and only thinking about myself. The thing is, I don't think I'm being selfish at all. I've already compromised by agreeing to stop at 2 kids when we originally planned for 3. I compromised by getting a vasectomy, which was a big decision for me. I feel like I've done my part, and now she's the one who's being selfish by constantly pushing for something I don't want. I've been thinking a lot about our relationship and how we got to this point. When we first got married, we were so in love and excited to start a family together. We talked about having 3 kids and the kind of life we wanted to build. But after our second child was born, something changed for my wife. She became really focused on her career and didn't want anything to derail that. I supported her decision to stop at 2 kids because I wanted her to be happy and fulfilled. Now, I can't help but wonder if she's regretting that decision. Maybe seeing her sister and friends having more kids has made her feel like she's missing out on something. I get that, but I don't think having another child is the answer. We have a great life with our 2 boys, and I don't want to disrupt that. I'm worried about what this means for our marriage. We've always been able to work through our problems before, but this feels different. It's like we're at an impasse, and neither of us is willing to budge. I don't want to get divorced, but I also don't want to be in a marriage where I feel like my opinions and feelings don't matter. I guess the next step is to try and have a calm, honest conversation with my wife about where we go from here. I want to understand her perspective and see if there's any way we can find a compromise that works for both of us. But if she's not willing to meet me halfway, I'm not sure what else I can do. Anyway, that's where things are at right now. It's been a tough week, and I don't see it getting easier anytime soon. Thanks for listening and for all your support. It means a lot to have a place to vent and get some outside perspectives. If you liked this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day!